Hello everybody, my name is Nick, and welcome back to another video. Today, we are going to be talking about a server that I created. Now, when you're looking at the title of this video, you'll obviously see what it's about. Yes, I made a server specifically for emergency dispatch. So, if somebody joins a channel like line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., somebody will respond and say, Discord emergency service, what service are you requesting? Well, yeah. So you get the idea. So I currently have 6 people on this server. Now, that may not seem like a lot, but take this into consideration. 6 people when I didn't even use any nitro. And I got 6 people very quickly. So that is actually pretty more impressive than most of you may be thinking. But why? Why would I create a server like this? Well, I've had a few reasons. One, Discord is a very unique platform for phone calling and servers and all that to it, or moderators, may have like an actual job. So it keeps people's hands busy. Now, another question you might have, is this an actual emergency service? The answer is yes. This server can actually be used to dispatch actual police, fire, or EMS to your location. So please, if you're going to join a line, only join a line if it's an emergency. If it's not an emergency, I think I'll actually be creating a server for that too. For, non-emergency calls, if you have like police complaints or something of that matter. I don't know how that would work, but we'll figure out one thing at a time, right? And the sound on Discord is generally a lot clearer on here than it is over something like 911, for example, or other 911 services. And who knows, maybe Discord may actually like work with me and make this into like an official thing. For now, though, this is what we have. So how does this work? Well, unlike other servers, no one will be able to be muted at any time, ever. No one is ever able to be muted. That is against my policy. The reason it's against my policy is because if they have an actual emergency, then that's risking their life, So that goes against my policy. When we do have some policies that operators do have to follow. Of course, there are actual laws that people here have to follow too. And you may be not even taking it that seriously. Is this an actual emergency service? Again, yes. This is an actual emergency service. This place can be used for dispatching police, fire, or EMS. So if you're going to join a line, join it when you have an actual emergency. Speaking of that, I want to explain how do lines work. So how the lines work are like this. There are currently 30 of them. If this place gets, actually popular enough where we can actually make more than 30, and I'm assuming there are because it used to be 8, now there's 6 because, I'll be honest, I haven't kept up with this server, but I actually felt bad that I haven't because this server is really unique. And I think we should appreciate that. So, there are currently 30 lines, for available lines. If one line isn't available, as of right now, then you're supposed to use another one. And if no lines are available and you have an emergency, then yes, the server does recommend that you call 911 instead if you need immediate assistance. But if the line's open, then surely use it. So there are some benefits to which this server is actually a little bit better than 911. But 911 can also be used to do the same thing as this too. So that's how lines work. The minimum, if somebody's trying to report a non-emergency, then even if they're trying to report a non-emergency, the minimum, the operator still has to wait 3 minutes until they can hang up, unless the other person leaves. If the other person leaves by then the operator will be able to leave too. And then I have a whole category for information so that everybody can see the operator policies. This is completely public to view, so that everyone can see the policies in case an operator might break one of these policies. It is always a possibility, and you'll have to always be ready for that, because of course there are some 911 operators as well that don't do their job right. Like you've seen it where 911 operators will literally hang up on people. So they do that and they cost a life. It was kind of in their hands to begin with. So now I know on other servers that are just non-emergency, don't even think about like police, fire, EMS, or anything like that. There are reward systems. And it may come as unfortunate for some people to know that there is nothing like that here. Fortunately, there's no rewarding system, because then that would just mean an extra channel that is really not essential to the purpose of this server. So that's why there isn't that. You're either an operator or you're not an operator. You pick one. You're either volunteer or you don't. That's how it works here at this. By the way, the name of this is called, let me see, hold on. Center for Emergency Calls and Alerts. It doesn't show it fully, but but there's just one last word after the word and that's alerts. And that's what I guess we'll talk about next. So information, there's this information, and it does explain that this is an emergency service for taking actual emergency calls. And you'll be greeted with emergency service. What is your emergency? And it just explains everything over here. Channels with this symbol are for alerting areas, and that symbol is seen right here. It's not this symbol in particular. The symbols next to the channels aren't actually yellow. They're really just gray, and they're not colored in yellow. Oops, they're not colored in yellow, like that. So, and I have made it clear that please note that this server is not completely finished yet, so it may not work as intended 100% of the time. And yes, this server does serve only the US. That'll change soon. What I want to do is create this into a global emergency service, and I made a whole channel for disclaimer, which honestly was really dumb. I don't think that was smart at all. So once again, the server is not completely finished yet, so it may not work as intended to all the time. But yeah. And this is how to use the text channels. You just simply type the word operator, and if you type another message, they'll just ask if you have an emergency. But if you type the word operator, they'll know, because you'll also know, because you're the one who typed it. So, okay, now that we have emergency calls out of the way, what about emergency alerts? Now, this is also an alternative for something else, the emergency alert system. So this is a very unique server, because not only is this the first server on Discord to ever be specifically for emergency calls, or be for emergency calls at all, but also it also combines both emergency calls and emergency alerts, which not even the government tends to do with 911 calling agencies. Now, what I will say is that there are 911 agencies that have sent emergency alerts out to television stations, and that has happened. There's someone named Tony Bressi, I think, who made a video called Creepy Tornado Warnings, and the 911 call center did send some alerts out in the St. Joseph County area, which you may not even have known that can happen. But the main emergency alert system for the United States is the emergency alert system. There's actually two, the emergency alert system and the wireless emergency alert system. The difference between the EAS and the WEAS is that one goes out to, the emergency alert system goes out to televisions and radios. So if there's an emergency, they'll broadcast it over a television or radio. However, this system also has its flaws, and I'm not just talking about the fact that the EAS does glitch, and that it does also have poor sound quality, which is another flaw in the system. I mean, who can blame it? The system started its coding in the year 1994 and didn't complete till 1997. So it's more than 20 years old. But also the fact that emergency alerts aren't guaranteed to come out unless it is directed by the president, directed by the governor. It either has to be directed by a president or a governor, mayor, or county president during a test. Because they say required monthly tests, they're actually required. And those tests, I believe, are enforced by the federal government. But again, I'm not very sure about that. Even though I've read their website regarding the emergency alert system. And then there's the wireless emergency alert system, which was actually developed a lot sooner. It was developed about 10 years after the emergency alert system was developed, in about 2011 to 2012. And there used to not even be presidential alerts, but now there are presidential alerts, and those are mandatory to be received if there would ever be a national emergency. So, I want to make a newer system where it would be run this time again by actual people, um, and it is run by actual people. The emergency alert system is. It's not. It is automated in certain ways and not automated in others. Um, well, that is a story for another day. Um, so in this channel, you'll actually receive emergency alerts during an emergency regarding a county, city, state, a county-wide, city-wide, statewide, or nationwide emergency. Or even in this case, during the COVID-19 pandemic, a global emergency or continental emergency. Global. So yes. So how this will work, I'm still deciding how to manage it right now, but it does work in the way that, okay, so certain operators are assigned to different areas. So they serve, say, some areas and some serve others. So for example, we actually do already have one emergency broadcaster, and there are two roles. There's emergency broadcaster and emergency operator. Emergency operators um, uh, keep in touch with people through the lines for emergency calls. Emergency broadcasters send emergency alerts, such as Amber Alerts, which are sent out by local or state police departments, or even by local, state, or the FBI. They can actually be sent out by FBI. Those are what's known as Amber Alerts, and those are for which really translates into child abduction. Um, there are also public safety alerts, which really can mean anything. There's civil emergency messages on cell phones. And then there are, let me see, government alerts, which are by the government. Technically, all alerts are by the government. And I don't really like to say the government either. There's no such thing as the government. There's a government. But, again, that's neither here nor there. And again, this one does serve only the United States. And again, that will change soon, where similarly to how emergency calls will be different, emergency alerts can be too. Now, what's the reasoning that emergency calls, we're going to go back to emergency calls, and, well, actually, no, before we do, I want to explain the other channel for this. There's Emergency Alert Thread, EAT, and Emergency Stream System. And an emergency broadcaster will go there and play a tone. Well, not a tone, maybe a tone. I'll have to, again, figure out how that's going to go, because, again, this server is still being developed. So how that'll work, though, is the idea of it will be that they announce some sort of emergency that will affect a county, city, state, or even the nation or country. These alerts are for the US only. That'll probably change. Now, okay, so let's go to calls. And we're going to explain why it's not available for certain countries. So the reason that it's not available for certain countries is that some people with cell phones, or even using things like Google Voice, which I think Google did shut down Google Voice, but again, that's neither here nor there. Um, so, for example, police stations, you might not be able to call certain police stations when you're in another country. For example, there are certain countries that you're not able to call through there, and there can be problems with that, and that would just delay um, that would just delay an emergency response. So doing it. So if there's somebody in another country besides the U.S., please. I'm not trying to. I'm not saying anything uh, rude or anything, if for lack of a better term. But please don't use this server. It would, and the reason is because that it would only slow down emergency response. If you are in another country besides the U.S., please just please just call uh, the emergency number in your region. For example, the emergency uh, number for North America, the continental emergency number is 911. So how do, and I also want to talk about that um, I got right on, after I got right into why we don't accept calls for people in other countries besides the U.S. I want to explain how, if you are in the U.S., um, how we get um, emergency services to your location. Well, you have to tell us the location of your emergency, like if you know what the exact address is or where the street is. Um, that's fine. And I'm going to have to figure out a way to make uh, the emergency text confidential. That might not even be possible. Uh, for actual emergencies, you want to keep your information confidential, and information will be kept confidential here. That's what I aim to achieve here. I aim to achieve the best that this server can be. And yeah, and we want to keep your information. Yes, and you do have to actually give your real address um, if you want help to arrive, or what street you're on, where your emergency is taking place. And you also need to tell us what county you're in. Um, and then we contact law enforcement, EMS, or um, the fire department in the area that you're in. So in most cases, we don't even need. So in most cases, we won't even need you to tell us uh, what police department to bring out there. Uh, but yeah. So for example, let's say if you're in a place like, for example, if you're in New York City, like, let's say you're in New York City, and well, we have to, well, we would have to, if we don't know what law enforcement there is there, fire or EMS there is there, and I'm not saying that a lot of people do. They're one of the most popular in the NYPD is the most popular, one of the most popular anyway, police departments that there is. But you know, some people might not know that, of course. So we would look up, for example, New York City, or for example, Richmond County. We look up Richmond County, and we would also need like your zip code and all that stuff. But Richmond County, for example, and we would look it up on Google Maps, and we would see what police department, EMS, um, or fire department would be there, and we would send those guys out to your location. So that's how that was. So we would actually send those people out. We would call them directly, and we would send them out to your location. Now, if it is in your area, for example, like if an operator just so happens to be in the area that you're in, then it would be recommended that they just call 911. But of course, you can also just contact them directly. It's recommended that you don't dial 911. I mean, you probably should. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. But for now, I know for a fact that you call 911, or no, you call the police, fire, or EMS directly.